It's so vividly clear. It's literally like I'm there experiencing this image. And so that was kind of tripping me out. And what I was seeing was so unbelievable. Literally, it was so unbelievable.
What I'm seeing with that is those beings came in to protect the daughter and all of the people who were getting shot at
Mhm.
from the energy. It's like they can't stop the bullets, but they can create a space in which the souls that are leaving their body can leave in a loving space.
Well, it's no problem. I said, this is what happened. You passed away recently from cancer, and it's okay. I said, you're in a safe place. Your angels and your guides and your family are all around you. You're just not noticing them at the moment. But here, let me show you. They're right here.
Yeah.
And he turned and he said, oh, I can see them now. And I
Oh.
saw his mom walk forward and his grandfather walk forward. And then they left. And that was that.
Hello and welcome to the Higher Vibe. I'm your
Hello.
host, Jean Roorda, and I'm having conversations with psychic friends. I love having conversations with psychic friends. Today I have with me Nikki Gross. She's a clairvoyant psychic. Hello, Nikki. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Happy to be
Yay.
here.
What I love about having conversations with psychic friends is the first thing I notice is just how our energies, bounce off of each other, like the vibe that we have just together. That
Yes,
kind of bubble of relating together. And both of us have a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, so it's just very bubbly.
I agree.
I love it. Oh, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, Nikki and I both experience being super psychic and sensitive, and maybe as psychics, we don't have a specific niche. Lots of psychics have, like, we talked about evidentiary mediumship and other podcasts, and some psychics have a very specific niche in terms of maybe being a medical intuitive or a pet psychic, something more specific. And then a lot of us are just like all of the above.
Yep.
But maybe there's a more specific niche when we just think about for the purpose of healing, right? I think a lot of us as psychics, we're in a specific place in our own soul's journey where it's really about giving to ourselves as well, really about recognizing like we're here to serve and give with these gifts of psychic mediumship and clairvoyance, but it's also for our own growth. And
Yeah.
so that's what I noticed the most about our match, so to speak, as psychics.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Sweet. So I would love for you to share with us, Nikki, how you discovered, how psychic you are and when you first got interested in this being kind of a life path for you.
Okay. Well, like a lot of people, I did not grow up knowing I was psychic or seeing angels necessarily or dead people, although I can remember a couple interesting experiences as a child, but probably about 15 years ago, I was working as a personal trainer and I started having, I've always been really health conscious, and I started having all this chronic pain from nowhere. There was no explanation for it. So, like, my elbows were really hurting, and then it would move up to my shoulders, and then it was my neck, and it kept getting worse and worse. And I was like convinced I had cancer on my spine or something. It was really freaky. And so I went to my regular doctor and he ran blood tests and did x-rays. And, I'm thinking I'm going to hear the worst. And he says to me, Nikki, there's nothing wrong with you. He goes, basically, you're healthy as a horse. There's nothing I can do for you. And I was just sat there stunned. I mean, I was relieved, but
Yeah.
I literally was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do because I can't continue living like this. So I was really like, what do I do? And then he said to me, well, how is your relationship with your husband? And like right then it hit me. I was like, oh my God, he thinks it's all in my head. And I
Oh.
totally like, I did this pivot and I kind of panicked a little bit because
Mhm.
that was not what I was expecting to hear. And I
Yeah.
shifted it right there. I thought, oh my God, Western medicine can't help me. I
Yeah.
have to try something different.
Yeah.
Eastern medicine, and I didn't know anything about Eastern. I mean, that was just like this thought that popped in my head.
Yeah.
So I left there and I thought, well, the only Eastern type of medicine I know is acupuncture. So I found this acupuncturist where I lived, and eventually I changed to a different acupuncturist who also was worked in like sports medicine. Like that was kind of her specialty. And I was
Yeah.
in personal training. That was my background. So I was more resonating with her. And she was helping me a lot with the acupuncture. I
Mhm.
was starting to get better. And then she said, "Oh, you need to stop lifting weights for a while," which I thought she was crazy. And then she said, "You need to start taking yoga." And I thought that was crazy too. And I was like, but whatever, what she's doing is working. So I'm going to continue to listen to her. She
Yeah.
said, "Well, I know this lady who teaches out of her house and there's small classes." I said, "Great." So I started going to her, this yoga teacher who just happened to also be a Reiki master.
Oh, fantastic.
Right. So so I was in a class one day and we were doing downward dog, and
Yeah.
could actually do down. I mean, that was like a big progression for me to be able to do that at that point, but I still could only do it one arm because my other arm hurt so bad still. And she was like, "Oh, honey, you really should use two arms on dog." And I was like, "Well, I would if I could, but I can't because it hurts." And she said, "Oh, well, I do Reiki." I had no clue what that was. And she said, "Oh, after class, maybe I can just do a little thing on you." And
Yeah.
I was like, I thought she was a nutso. I was like, what is she talking about? And I don't know, maybe. So class ended and she came, and the only reason I let her touch me was because there were still people in the room. I thought if something happens, at least there's people around me. Like that's how like out of it I was. And she put her hands on my shoulder, and I felt this energy go right to the spot that was most painful, that I could never describe and nobody could ever get to. And I was like, whoa, that's trippy. And so then she was like, "You should come in for a session." And I was like, "Okay, I'll think about it." But I finally did, because I started to trust her.
Yeah.
And I realized in that first session, all my problems stemmed from being overstressed and no way to deal with it, manage it. And I think it was also because I was so sensitive and I didn't know it. And it was just like building up. I didn't know how to like run energy or clear or ground or anything. So that was the start of it. So because the acupuncture got me like 75% better. And I knew there was something else missing that I couldn't figure out what I needed. And it was the Reiki. That was the energy work. The Reiki, like literally, I have not ever had that pain since, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's a miracle. Like, literally, it's a miracle. So I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like the self-healing thing, that's like, I'm down. Let's do that. Right. And she taught. So I took her first class. And even though I was really interested and fascinated by it, I still thought it was like crazy, crazy stuff. This is really out there. But
Yeah.
I really got engrossed in it. And I took her next level class. And then I found another Reiki teacher and got the master level. And then my neighbor across the street said, "Oh, there's this other Reiki teacher. Why don't you take with her too?" And so I was taking her course, and this last Reiki teacher that I trained with, out of the blue, calls me. Of all the students, she told me, she's like, "No, I'm only telling you this for some reason. I don't know, but I was just got the hunch to like tell you this out of the blue." And so she says, "I know the psychic woman that I have readings with." And she had never ever brought this up in class. I had no idea she was into having readings or knew what psychic stuff was. She was just a yoga teacher and a Reiki master, a different yoga teacher and Reiki master.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And she said, "I know this lady who's a psychic. I think she's the real deal. And if you feel drawn, here's her number to have a reading." And I was like, well, that's pretty random. Like she tells me this. And I was really neutral. I was like neither here nor there. But I thought, well, what the heck? I'll try it out.
Yeah.
Well, that person turns out to be Julia Harrell.
Ah.
So I had a reading with Julia.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Whoa, this is really cool." I thought it was so cool. And in that first reading, Julia kept saying, "You're really clairvoyant. You need to get a training. You're really clairvoyant. And you need to get
Yeah.
training." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, whatever." But I was so interested by the reading. I had a couple more readings with her. And each time she just like wouldn't let it go.
Yeah.
Like, "You're really clairvoyant. You need to get training." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." So finally I said, "Okay, well, I don't want to go to a class or do." I said, "You train me. Why don't you teach me?" And she said, "Well, I can do like a little bit, but I'm not really set up for that yet," because that was quite a while back, ways ago. And she said, "But why don't you take classes with my teacher, Michael Tamura?" So that's how that all started. That's how
So it sounds like it started with like pain in your body that
a
was
personal crisis.
unignorable. Yeah. personal crisis. Pain that was not something that Western medicine or any kind of physical medicine could address because it was
Right.
energy, right? This
It was
was
energy.
not like you had a physical injury
Nope.
or it was just energy built up in the body and the Reiki cleared it and then it got your attention. It's nice how pain gets our attention.
It got my attention. Yeah.
It
So
gets
I
your
started,
attention and kind of sends you down that rabbit hole of
yeah.
discovering all the
Yeah.
levels of your awareness. So
Yeah.
great. And so then did you jump into getting classes and training and
Well, I did a couple one-on-one classes with Julia, and then I did a one or two classes with Michael, but I wasn't like totally on board yet with him for what I don't remember why, and I was kind of jumping around trying different places. And because he didn't have like the entry level in-person classes, and I really wanted in person. So I
yeah,
think Julia may have told me about Psychic Horizons in Colorado.
yeah,
And because they have it's in person on the phone, but you still are working with the group. So
right,
that's what I did next, really, for my initial training. And my
right.
teacher was Hope Houston, who
Yeah,
lots of people are familiar with.
love it. Yes.
So it's, meditation 101. You learn how to ground, you learn how to run energy, things like that. And for some reason, I swear it was like class number two or three.
Right
It
at the
was like
beginning.
way in the beginning.
Yeah.
And Hope says, "Oh, so we're going to trade readings with each other in the group. They can pair you on the phone." And she goes, "We're going to read past lives." And I was thinking in my head, huh, okay. Like, we're in like class two or three. Like, how is this even
Yeah.
possible? A.
Yeah.
B. I didn't even know if I believed in past lives.
I love it.
I was like, is that even a real thing? I'm certainly not qualified to read a past life because we just started training. And anyway, so I had all these pictures to blow, right? But that doesn't stop Hope. She just keeps going.
No.
So I get paired up with this person and I'm reading the energy and the images, because you're brand new, so you don't have any thoughts of how it's supposed to be. It's just, you're just doing the thing.
Yeah.
And I get this image, it's so vividly clear. It's literally like I'm there experiencing this image. And so that was kind of tripping me out. And what I was seeing was so unbelievable. Literally, it was so unbelievable. I was just like, there's no way. There's
Yeah.
no way, A, that I'm reading this correctly, B, that this is even a possibility of reality. And it was an image that might make the person feel bad if I told them what it was. So I had all these things, and was just sat there silent. I literally couldn't speak.
Right.
And Hope was like, "Okay, tell us what you see, Nikki." And I'm
Right?
like,
Say what you see.
"Nope,
You're like, no.
not doing it." Not doing that, not going there. And she was like, she's gently prodding me. And she says, I've seen some really strange things. And sometimes they look like future lives. Sometimes they don't even look like a human life. So she was kind of like trying to
Yeah.
talk me through this whole thing. And I thought,
Yeah.
okay. She goes, but your job as a clairvoyant is to say what you see. That is your job. There's no other job. You say what you see. And I thought, okay, well, if that's my job and that's what I'm supposed to do, I'll start letting it roll.
But just so you know, like warning.
Warning. So as
I
gently
love
as I could, I started talking about what I saw, which was I was on another planet and I was literally standing on the planet. I mean, it was so clear.
Yeah.
And it was a red colored planet. And I deduced that it was Mars, is what I figured I was standing on. And I was standing next to this person who was this past life vision. And the
Yeah.
person I was reading in real time was a woman currently in this lifetime. But the past life they had was a man. So all this was so new to me, it really threw me off. So I was like, I don't understand. You're a man in a past life, and it looks like a future life, but I'm supposed to be reading a past life. Like, I was so confused.
Yeah.
But Hope kept just saying, just your job is to say what you see. So just say what you see. So I said, okay, I'm standing on this planet that looks like Mars, feels like Mars, but I don't know what Mars feels like. It feels like Mars. And there's a man standing there in a spacesuit, but a very modern looking spacesuit, more like what we see now, not what
Yeah.
we saw 15 years ago. And he's standing there and he has come back to the planet to visit the planet because he had been on the planet before as a military person. He was in some kind of military, definitely human. And he had come back because he was kind of going through the memories of when he had been there last. And he was in the military and they were doing this military exercise, and some conflict was happening. I didn't see the details of the conflict, but he had been given the order to set off basically this explosion that he knew would kill basically everything, including his men. And he didn't want to do it, but he had to follow orders.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of the extent of the vision. He had come back to the planet after being gone for many years to just kind of hold space or whatever.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I don't know how this person's going to take all this information. I mean, that's kind of out there. It's kind of heavy, you know, and all that stuff. And then Hope was like, great, good job. Okay, moving on. Like,
Right.
and that was the last of that, right?
Yeah, I love it.
So for years afterwards, I thought I had completely failed that mission of doing that past life reading, because I still thought years later, there's no way that's possible. Mars has not been blown up. Nobody's ever lived there. How can you have a past life that's a future life? Like all the things. So I just thought like that poor person just took this information that I'm sure I just made up. But I kept thinking, not in a million years could I make this up. Like my brain just doesn't like my brain doesn't my brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And you kind of know that about yourself. So I'm like, I don't know where that came from. So anyway, so then years later, I'm watching the Gaia channel. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And Regina Meredith was interviewing this guy. It was like one of those things where I like randomly happened to find this show, right? And she's interviewing this physicist, John Brandenburg. And he's talking about how a long time when he worked at, I think Sandia Labs in New Mexico, he stumbled upon this information that showed there had been some sort of nuclear explosion on Mars. And like my jaw drops and I'm like, what? Like, really? And it was the first kind of remote validation that I had read it correctly. Years later. And I thought, wow, that's a possibility. And he talked about like what scientific evidence he had, and he's written a couple books about it, and he does lots of talks about it. And nobody's really, I mean, I don't know about nobody, but it's not like a mainstream media type of thing.
Right.
But I think it's going to be coming out more soon, right? So anyway, so that was one of my first fun reading experiences.
Well, and I love it that, you know, you were aware of all of the invalidation you were sitting in, because that's the first layer of energy that comes up. And it comes up for years and years and years whenever you give a reading and you just say what you see, and that all of those invalidation pictures light up, right? All of those thoughts that are like, well, that can't be right, or that's crazy, or that doesn't make sense, or, you know, that doesn't check out.
Right. And it still comes up because you'll see some really wild things and you're like, you're afraid to say it to someone, you know, but then you say it and they're like, oh yeah. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, it's so good to be aware of those as invalidation thoughts, pictures, rather than letting that stop you. So it's so great that you had a teacher to just be like, say what you say. Even a little nudging, right? A little bit like, nope, just go for it. Yeah. And then how fun that you got that validation later. It sounds like you could really let go of some invalidation that you were holding on to, or some skepticism or doubt, or
for sure.
And just all of the, you know, whatever level of programming we want to call it, whether it's just invalidation of psychic in general, or sometimes we call it atheist energy of like none of this is real, right? Spirit isn't real. Seeing all of this is not real. Yeah. It's fun to have a little bit of proof later to help let go of those.
It is for sure. Yeah.
And what a discovery. Yeah. I love it.
Me too.
So much fun. That brings me to this thought of like, it sounds like you kind of are an evidentiary medium without calling yourself that. Has that ever come up for you in other readings where you didn't intend to give evidence, but you saw it and you said what you saw? And
yes, yeah. Several years ago, I got a call from a man who said, oh, this friend of mine recommended me to you to have a reading. My daughter was killed and she just thought I should have a reading with you. And immediately my flags go up, and I thought, oh God,
Yeah.
pressure, that's a lot of pressure. And so I said, well, have you had a reading before? And he's like, no. And I could tell that this was a whole new territory for him. Like, this was not, psychic stuff and spirituality in general, outside of religion, wasn't his thing. So I was like, wow, I don't know if I
Yeah.
want to do this reading for this man.
Yeah.
This is a lot of
But
pressure.
it could be an honor, but also it feels like, yeah, it brings up a
Yeah,
lot of
but I could
performance
tell he really
anxiety.
wanted, I could tell he really wanted to try it. He was
Yeah.
genuine about like exploring this avenue. So I was like, okay. But I did give him the caveat. I said, I'm not an evidentiary medium. And he said, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, it's where, I connect with someone who's on the other side and they will tell me what you had for breakfast, or they tell me information that no one else would know except you. I said, that's not my thing. And he's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's totally fine. He
Yeah.
was just there to have the experience of a reading to see what it was about. I said, okay, fine. But leading up to that day, oh, he just texted me, yes, it's fine. Right, what we're talking about is
Your
great.
psychic hello.
So his
Great.
name is Eric Housley, and
Yeah.
his daughter's name is Elena, and she was killed in a mass shooting down in Southern California. I said, okay. And I was really thankful in that moment because I don't really read the news. Because I find it more challenging the more I know about a person to do a reading than to not know anything. So I then purposely like, because she was from our hometown. They lived in where I lived in
Yeah.
Napa. And so I was like, okay, don't look at any headlight. Like, I don't want to get any information about her
Yeah.
whatsoever. So anyway, the day of the reading, leading up to the reading, I was like having anxiety attacks. I was like, I didn't want to do the reading. I was feeling so much pressure and I could have been picking up on his energy, but I was having my performance pictures light up. So we get to the reading, we start the reading, and I'm just talking blah, 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 like nonstop the entire time. And I'm getting minimal to no feedback from him, which is fine. I don't require feedback, but sometimes you do want to hear, like, am I at least on track? Or like, are we tracking? Like, because if not, I'm wasting your time.
Right.
So in my recollection, I don't remember having a lot of feedback from him. I think it was maybe a little overwhelming. He was trying to take it all in. So at the very, very end, of course, like the last 5 minutes, I'm getting this vision that's again just so clear, crystal clear, like I'm there, and it won't let go. You know how you get a vision, you talk about it, and then it'll go on, the next one comes through. It just won't let up. And I'm not talking about it because I can't figure it out. Like, it's not making any sense to me. And that's part of the lesson of being a psychic reader, is that most of the time you don't understand what it means. But again, your job is to say what you see because it doesn't make sense to you, but it will make sense to somebody else. And that's part of this learning process that continues, right? So I'm sitting there and, I'm probably talking about something else, but over here, there's still this vision that just is getting like, just won't let go. And so I finally say, Eric, here's the deal. I'm having this vision. It's really clear. It's really intense, but it won't go away. I have to tell you what I'm seeing. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm afraid to tell you what it is.
Yeah.
He goes, don't be, just tell me. He's the kind of the guy like, just lay it on me. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll lay it on you. So I said, here's what I see. I see it's like when you walk into a house, there's a foyer, those skinny tables in a foyer that you'd like set your keys on, and the mail on might have a little lamp or something. I'm like, that's what I'm seeing. It's in this house, in this foyer. And I keep being drawn to this envelope that's on this table. And it's like an 8.5 by 11, or, bigger than a regular letter envelope, like a yellow manila envelope. And I go, this is the part I can't figure out. I go, there's no letter inside it. And it's making no sense to me, but I'm keep being drawn to the letter. I have to focus on talk about the manila envelope, but there's no letter inside it. So I can't figure it out. It makes no
Yeah.
sense to me. And there's like dead silence. And I'm like, oh God. And,
Yeah.
oh no. And he goes, that's in my house.
Yeah.
He goes, that table, that exact scene that you're describing is my house.
Yeah.
And he has a little different memory of the conversation than I do. He talks about it as an afterthought. I sort of remember it at the time is he's saying, I'm looking at that right now. And there's a letter on there. But when he tells the story, he says, oh, I came home and I found that letter because he like came home after we had the conversation. He goes, but yes, there was a manila envelope on that table that you described, and there was no letter inside it. He
Yeah.
goes, which I thought was really strange. He goes, but what was in it was one of those rubber bracelets, that people make for different causes. And it was like that cause related to the mass shooting that one of the officers had mailed to him. And so that was the evidence. I'm like,
Yeah.
so we were literally both blown away. So this was,
Yeah.
it gets even funnier. So then I was like, oh my God, are you serious? And he goes, yes. And I said, send me a picture because I like couldn't believe it. So he
Oh,
took a
yeah.
picture, he emails me the picture, and then like the next day it's gone. It vanishes. The
Wow.
whole email, the picture, everything.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so I texted him, I said, Eric, I can't find that email anymore with the picture. Because it's like I needed the continual validation of this whole thing that happened. And he texted me back and he said, it's gone. He goes, I can't find it either.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, okay.
Yeah.
That was Elena's way of saying, listen, I sent you the evidence. You need to get over it.
Yeah.
Put your big girl pants on.
You do have the capability of being an evidentiary psychic,
Let
but you
it
don't
go
need the
and move
evidence that
on.
you are
And
an evidentiary.
yeah, and I really took that as that's how it was. So,
Yeah, that's great. Your
um,
guides are like, you don't need any more proof. Just own
yeah,
it.
just own it, right? So that was that. And then another reading I did with him a different time. She did, in this kind of as a side note, it's interesting too, because in the beginnings, the readings were more about her talking to him and what kind of them back and forth.
Yeah.
But the last year or two, it's more been about him and his growth. She's always kind of present, but she definitely stays in the background because she wants it to be more about him than her.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool.
I can move on. Yeah.
So another time, she was showing me an image of her and a boy because she was in college when this happened, when she died. And I was like, oh God, I don't want to say this. Eric has never brought up that she had a boyfriend. So I had no clue. And I was like, oh, didn't want to ask. I'm like, did she have a boyfriend in high school? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, And I said, I don't know what this means, but she keeps showing me a red metal flower like you would put in your garden, like those big, really big
Yeah.
flowers that are metal. And it was this red flower with red petals. And I go, and they're sitting on his bed and they're laughing about this metal flower. I go, it makes no sense to me. I'm just that's it. That's all I got. He goes,
Yeah.
okay. So at the end of the reading, later he says, as soon as we got off the call, he goes, I called her boyfriend. And I said, do you know anything about this red metal flower and sitting on your bed and laughing? And he says the boyfriend was like stunned
Yeah.
and was like, what? What are you doing? That's crazy. He goes, yes, that really happened. He said, my mom is this amazing gardener, and she had this red metal flower or multiples of them in her garden. And we would like tease her and crack up because we're like, you don't need these fake metal flowers because you're this amazing gardener. And they would laugh about that.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, how could you know that? So
Oh,
it's just this proof that
yeah.
people do live on, they do communicate. And so that was a fun one.
Absolutely.
And then if we're talking about ins and outs of being psychic, the outs of what we or ups and downs, or it can be really intense, especially when you're really sensitive, even though I use my tools at the best that I can. Still, can get overwhelmed easily, especially in readings. So much so that sometimes I joke when I start a reading and say, I call myself the crying clairvoyant. So I'm just just warning you. If I
Yeah.
start getting emotional, don't freak out. I'll recover. Just it's okay.
Yeah. Don't
I'll
take
I'll
it
get through
personally.
it. Eric had always said, I don't want to hear about the details of when she was killed. And I was like, fantastic. I don't want to go there either.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the readings early on, she came through really strong and she's like, I want to talk about it. And I was
Oh,
like, okay, you know. And so I said, Eric, I know you have told me you don't want to hear about it, and I don't necessarily want to look at it, but this is here. She wants
yeah.
to talk about it. He was like, okay, lay it on me. So I said, okay. So she thankfully did not give me the gory details, but what she wanted to show me or communicate to him was that when she was killed, she was not in any pain. It was so instantaneous. It was literally that instantaneous. She was
Yeah.
boom out of her body. And the really interesting part was these beings that I'm calling angels because I don't have any other term to describe them, came to her probably a millisecond before it happened. And there were like four of them around her on like holding space.
Wow.
And it was so intense because I was like, these are really interesting looking angels. And I
Yeah.
started looking into their energy, and it was so overwhelming, the
Yeah.
love that they had. I was like literally bawling,
Yeah.
like could not keep it together. It was so embarrassing. And so thankfully, Eric was cool as a cucumber, totally rolled with it,
Yeah.
let me get my composure. But to this day, if I really start thinking about it, I'll start crying because it was so intense. So these beings look like human light forms, just human shaped light bodies. And I had never seen anything like this before in readings or in pictures or drawings or anything. So I had a really hard time kind of describing them to Eric and even to myself and explaining what they were. Who were they? I just said they're just these like guardians of hers, and they're there for lots of people, and they're so fierce. They're fierce.
Yeah.
Fierce in all ways, like fierce in love, protection, but they could be fierce in other ways too. And then again, a couple years later, I see these drawings of exactly what I saw that I had
Wow.
never seen anywhere before. And I've been into angels for years and years and years. So again, it was just this funny, like, validation years later of, no, this is really what you saw. And it was right, too.
That's beautiful. I love that you saw that and could validate that for the father, because what I'm seeing with that is those beings came in to protect the daughter and all of the people who were getting shot at
Mm-hmm.
from the energy. It's like they can't stop the bullets, but they can create a space in which the souls that are leaving their body can leave in a loving space, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously the person shooting was not in a loving space, right?
Right.
There was a lot of very dark energy coming through and a lot of destroy and, pretty dark energy coming through. But those beings were like, it's not part of the agreement of those souls to be the effect of that darkness on a spiritual level, right?
Right.
They were in agreement to leaving their body and taking their next step on a spiritual level. But really, those beings are like, this is the loving vibration that you're exiting in, regardless of what's happening
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
isn't
Yeah.
loving. Yeah, so beautiful. And
Totally.
for the father to know that, that's such peace of mind that you offered him, because just to know, like, no matter how violent and ugly the situation was, her soul could leave at peace and in a
Yeah.
loving space.
Yeah,
So
totally. And I really give all the credit to Elena for coming through so strongly,
yeah,
and to Eric, who had the bravery to explore a new avenue that was
yeah,
totally unknown to him. So since then, he has taken on speaking engagements. He's come up with a nonprofit called Elena's Voice. And
beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
and his book is coming out in November. I think it's called Always November.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
about
So
his
he wrote a book
experience.
about this experience. Excellent.
Yeah,
So great that you could support him in accessing deeper levels of information about this whole experience too.
yeah,
And
yeah.
for Elena, that's that quite, I wouldn't say super common, but it often happens that there's at least one soul in a crowd like that who's kind of guiding and leading those groups of souls to their next step spiritually,
Mm,
and to all of the people affected here, right? All the family members that lost loved ones,
yeah,
to really see it on that deeper spiritual level and find their next step in
yeah.
awareness and healing. So, yay, Elena, for
I know. Good
being
job,
a leader
Elena.
in that regard.
And I've
Yeah.
I've had other experiences where like a few months ago, a good friend of mine, her like this distant brother by marriage passed quickly from cancer at a young age. And I didn't know him, but she said, "Oh, so and so passed." And so this one morning, I'm about to get in the shower, and boom, he's there. And I'm thinking, "Oh, this is my imagination, right?" but,
Still
but
with the Yeah.
It's
In
still no.
validation pictures.
And I have found that more than once where people who have passed come to me because I guess they know I can see them and communicate with because they're
Yeah.
feeling lost. They're still too connected to the human
Yeah.
plane.
They
So
need a little
anyway,
help speaking their
so
language.
he's telling me, he goes, I keep trying to talk to Cecile and she's not hearing me. That's my friend's name.
Yeah.
She's not hearing me. I keep trying to talk to her. I keep trying to get her attention. She's not listening to me. She's not listening to me. And I said, okay, well, what do you try to,
Yeah.
what? And I could tell he was confused. He didn't know where he was. He was kind of lost. And I said, well, it's no problem. I said, this is what happened. You passed away recently from cancer and it's okay. I said, you're in a safe place. Your angels and your guides and your family are all around you. You're just not noticing them at the moment. But here, let me show you. They're right here.
Yeah.
And he turned and he said, oh, I can see them now. And I
Oh,
saw his mom walk forward and his grandfather walk forward. And then they left. And that was that. It was
wow.
like a 1 minute thing. So then later I told my friend about the experience. And of course, I'm hesitant to tell her because I'm thinking, well, what if his mom really isn't dead? I just made that whole story up. And she's like, oh no, she's passed. And if the grandpa's passed. And I was like, I don't know why I don't trust myself. But
Yeah, it's good that you get the evidence, huh? That's helpful.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
Um,
great. I love
and
how simple it is too. Sometimes when you communicate spirit to spirit, it really can just be one moment of validation,
yeah,
one moment of a hello, one moment of awareness, and
yeah.
that's all. It's just, oh, thank you. That's all they needed was that hello, and then he
Yep.
could take his next step. Did he have any specific messages for your friend?
No, no.
No.
Just he
He
just
just
was
wanted to understand.
he couldn't figure out where he was. That's
Yeah.
all it was. He just
Yeah.
needed some guidance. And then earlier this year, same acupuncturist I was telling you about, I hadn't seen her in years and years and years, like 10 years or 15 years. And then
Yeah.
my back went out. So I went back to her and I was in a great deal of pain and she helped me. And of course, coincidentally, her dad was in the throes of passing. I mean, this is
Yeah.
I don't know why I had to go through so much pain to like go through this, but anyway, so he ends up passing in the few weeks that I'm seeing her, and then I'm in the bathroom minding my own business, getting ready for the day, and poop, he drops in, and
That's when the beings find you when you're in the bathroom.
I know. He gives me this whole message and he's telling me about Uncle Bob. So my husband has an Uncle Bob that we were really close to that passed. And I was like, Uncle Bob, okay, well, whatever. Like they don't know. I mean, they have no clue about each other. Her
Right.
dad has no clue about Uncle Bob. So why does Uncle Bob keep coming in this whole message?
Wow.
To my friend the acupuncturist. So I sent her a text and said, your dad just popped in. He has a message for you if you want to hear it. Because I never know if people how they feel.
Yeah.
If you want to hear it, I'll record it and just send it to you. And she says, yeah, great. So I send her the recording. And then, like a week later, I see her in person. And I expanded more on the Uncle Bob part because I didn't really talk about that in the recording. I said, I just can't figure out. It's just a mystery why my Uncle Bob kept coming into that reading. I just can't figure it out because her dad was saying, me and Uncle Bob are up in the mountains and we're at this lake and we're sitting here. And he gave me the whole scene. And I said, your dad's in a great place. They're together. I go, I don't know why they're together because they don't know each other, but they're together. And your dad's just kind of easing into the transition, but he's doing fine. And he had some other messages for her.
Yeah.
And so I kept repeating to her, I don't understand the Uncle Bob part. Like I just couldn't get over it. And she finally stops and goes, my Uncle Bob just passed 6 months ago.
Oh, it was her Uncle Bob.
And I'm like, oh, okay. So I
Yeah.
tell people in readings, sometimes it's literal and sometimes it's symbolic, and sometimes it was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's
true.
often more for you to figure out than for me to figure out. I'm just here to give you the information. So anyway,
Hilarious. I was
yeah,
thinking the whole time, I was like, there must be another Uncle Bob.
yeah. Why
Unless
I
they're
didn't think
just
of it.
spirit friends on the
But she
astral
was
plane.
holding out on me for a long time about her Uncle Bob.
Yeah. You're like, oh, now you tell me. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Oh, so it sounds like even when there's a lot of challenges of being a psychic, there's still so many joys and benefits. Just seeing how much help and support you can offer people just in simple communication, to
Yeah.
provide whether it's closure for loved ones who've passed on,
Yeah.
or just those little bits of evidence that help people move on from a challenging situation. Those hellos are so important. And then so joyful for you to, well, just the validation. I think it's
Yeah.
so validating to hear that feedback of like, no, you're not
Yeah.
crazy. You're not making this up. You are
Yeah.
seeing that.
It's still after all these years, I like question myself, but which I think is
Yeah.
kind of funny.
It's part of the society we grow up in. There's so much of those crazy
Hmm.
pictures. There's so much of that programming still that's like, oh no, you're just making that up, right? It's just your imagination.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you're able to recognize that and let it go and continue to just say what you see and speak to what you're aware of,
Yeah.
you don't have to let all that invalidation stop you.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
know.
and I love being psychic and I love being a psychic. I love it. It's like my favorite thing in the world. Yet
Yes.
it can also be really, really intense and hard to deal with on so many different levels, whether it's feeling someone else's emotions or just with an intense situation. I had an experience years ago. I had broke my collarbone and some ribs. And so I went into, you have to keep getting x-rays. So I go into the medical office to get one of my x-rays and I'm standing at the x-ray machine thing and the nurse, they have to go behind the wall to zap the thing so they don't get zapped. And so she's behind the wall, and I start like it's so strong, can't deny it. I start picking up on her son's energy. And he's like 6 years old or so, and I'm like, no, not now, no, no, no. I'm like, I don't want to do
Like,
this. I
not a
don't
good
want to
moment.
do this. It's kind
Right.
of, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, but it's so intense. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's so intense. Like
Yeah. It's like unignorable.
I can't bypass it. I can't let it go. And I'm thinking, oh God, oh God. I'm just sitting there. This all sounds like a long time. It's all happening
Right.
instantaneously.
Instant. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, no, 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 no. I don't want to bring this up. And she's going to think I'm crazy because
Yeah.
it's going to sound totally crazy. Like it just is. There's no way around it, right? But it's so intense. I can't not say anything. So
Yeah.
she's behind the thing. And I go, so she's over like by this wall. And I'm like, do you have a son who's like
Yeah.
6 years old? I mean, think how crazy that sounds, right?
Mhm.
I don't know her from anyone, and you have to visualize this like it's only funny
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I look over at the corner of my eye and I see this head like poke around, like, yeah, like you like who the hell are you and what are
Yeah.
you talking about, right? I'm like, I go, okay. Okay, so got that right, and I said, how is he doing? Is he doing okay? Is he having a hard time? And she goes, yeah, he's having a really hard time. And so instantly that like crazy picture went away and she was just like, tell me. Like she
Yeah.
didn't care.
Yeah.
She didn't ask me any questions. Who are you? How do you know this? This sounds crazy. She was just like, yes, he's having a hard time. What do you want to tell me? And I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Excellent. Yeah.
But it's one of those offices like it's like everything's like like super fast. Like got to get them in and get out. So I felt so much pressure to like get all this, all this information's coming. I can't talk fast enough. She starts crying. I start crying. I'm trying to keep it like it was like so like so intense. I'm like, this is crazy. But
In the middle of the X-ray office.
in the middle of an X-ray, yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
like, so anyway, she took it. I was like, here's my card. If you want to call, I'm not trying to sell you a reading. If you just, I know it was a lot of information in a very short amount of time in these really strange circumstances. So if you have questions, call me. I never heard from her. So maybe
Wow.
she heard what she needed to hear. But it was, for me, it took like a week to recover because it was so intense. It was so emotional. Yeah.
Yes. No, I love this story about being psychic in the moment, and maybe sometimes the pressure you might feel as a psychic to,
Hmm.
do I say what I see now? Is this okay in this context at the doctor's office?
Right.
But it sounds like with that experience, you experienced that information with a lot of pressure. Like it felt important, or like there was some kind of extra nudging from spirit of like, no, just say it, just say it. Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes as psychics, we pick up on that information, but it's not something we necessarily need to point out, right? Because it would be a little bit too much, maybe, if
Right.
everybody you encounter, and you're always like just saying what you see. But you get those extra nudges from spirit sometimes, and maybe you don't know why, that
Yeah.
needed to be heard by her. But for her, that could have been just so important and profound, or just some kind of validation, like, yes, this is real.
Yeah.
We do have these abilities and sensitivities, all humans do, to pick up on information
Yeah.
that isn't physically seen or heard, but is heard
Yeah.
in spirit and seen in spirit. So for her to get that hello, you might not know
Yeah.
why, but it needed to happen.
Yeah, and it felt like it was coming from the child. So it wasn't
Mhm.
like coming from her wanting, I mean, it was him. Like, I can't explain these things, but it was like him, his presence in the room saying, I need some help, and you are the person that can communicate this to her. So it's interesting as a psychic. I find it interesting that when you're reading energy, you can tell the difference usually if the person is alive or if they're passed. So in this case, I was like, oh, this boy is talking to me and picking up on this energy. So I'm starting to question like, oh, has he passed? And I'm getting no, like he's still here, present on this planet. So to me, that's fascinating that like you can even tell those little nuances. In readings, I'll
Yeah.
say, oh, I'm getting this person coming through, or I'm, this energy coming through, and I can tell it seems like they've passed on, but I don't, I always question myself a little bit. So I'll say, oh, has this person passed on? And I'll also say, yeah, no, okay. Or is this person still alive? Yep. Okay. So anyway.
So great. And you brought this up relative to, I thought this was a really important distinction you made, the difference between being psychic and being a psychic, right? Because to me, that points to, well, we're all psychic, right? And we all
Mhm.
have psychic experiences of hearing spirit, seeing spirit, picking up on information that's not coming from a physical level, but
Right.
more of that inner spiritual level. But then being a psychic is when you're aware that you're psychic and you're consciously using that in your life, either for your own navigation and or to support others in navigating their life. So that's a really important distinction, and I love that anyone
Yeah.
can take that step from just recognizing they're psychic to then being a psychic, which doesn't have to mean becoming a professional reader. It can, but it can just mean owning that ability and
Yeah.
learning how to own it in a way that's supportive and beneficial rather than it just being a burden. Because, like we talked
Totally.
about with the ins and outs of being psychic, it's not all joy and bubbles and flowers. There's challenges, right? There's difficulties in having those highly attuned sensitivities if we're not learning how to work with them, how to manage them in our lives, how to use them for beneficial healing purposes, right? It can be just overwhelming if we're not owning those abilities and learning
Yeah.
how to use them properly. So I love that you pointed that out.
Yeah. And yeah, and to your point, I often find myself telling people in readings, listen, everybody is psychic, whether they're aware of it or not, conscious of it or not. And, a lot of times you'll read stuff, pictures or programs that people have in their life that they're bumping up against currently, which is why they're having a reading, whether they're aware of it or not. Things that happen like in childhood. So if you grew up and you were really psychic as a kid, even if your parents, quote unquote, aren't psychic, everybody's
Mhm.
psychic. So they're picking up on energy. That's all everybody does all day long is read energy, whether you're aware of it or not. And so you have a
Right.
parent of a child who's like really strong as a soul, really psychic, and it feels threatening in a way, right? So they tamp it down or they tamp you down, and it could be intentional, it could be unintentional, it could be verbal, it could be nonverbal, it could be whatever. But as a kid, you have to survive with these parents, right? And so you take on the stories and you believe them. Like I try to explain that to people, like, that's what's happening, and now you're in this place where you have the opportunity to become aware of it and change your thoughts about it. And I encourage people to like always get training, like go to school, because you will feel so much better. You'll feel empowered and you'll feel accepted and validated because you'll meet people who are very similar to you.
Community of other psychics who are owning those abilities and being able to communicate amongst each
Yeah.
other is so helpful and supportive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, and I
even
love what you pointed out about like the role of parents, because you could have on an outer level the most perfect parent. You could have even just totally wonderful parents, not abusive, just like really doing their best and loving and nurturing. But if they're still carrying that fear around being psychic, or that resistance to picking up on all that extra level of information, that's going to pass on to you, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, whether that's conscious or not, intentional or not. And if certainly if there's a more conscious level of programming within your family lineage of fear around psychic stuff, then it's going to be even more apparent. But no matter what, if you don't have parents who are really owning those psychic abilities, then as a child, you were inheriting a lot of fear programming, a lot of resistance,
Hmm.
a lot of don't go there, a lot of invalidation. So
Yeah,
all those layers we get to uncover. And of course, we have those layers from other lifetimes too. Come
totally.
in with some of that, right? How many of us as souls have experienced a lifetime where we were using our psychic awareness and got punished for it, right? Or killed for it.
And
That
often
happens too,
many,
right?
many lifetimes. I just did a reading a couple days ago with a woman, and I have never seen somebody so connected to angels. I mean,
Wow.
I'm really connected to angels. I love angels. Totally into angels. But this lady was like, I kept saying, wow, I've never seen somebody. And I said, you literally can hear music,
Yeah.
the angel, the music of the cosmos, the angels
Yeah.
singing. And she didn't really respond. I said, no, you can. I said, if you want to sing as
Yeah.
that's your creativity expression as the soul that you are. And she's like, oh, she goes, I've always wanted to sing, but I get this, my throat physically seizes up. And I said you're meant to be singing and singing with these angels. And so we looked at the energy in her throat, and I said, well, there's a lot of past lifetimes in there where you were killed for being a witch and being a psychic and being connected spiritually for, I go, there's like multiple layers of lifetimes of this that can be
Yeah.
cleared. So she was like, wow. She
Yeah.
said, I've never heard all this information. Somebody tell this to me that she knew to be true, but no one has ever said to her.
Yeah.
It was a great
It's
opening for
great to
her.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said, she said,
That's what a reading
she
is
goes, you got,
for, right?
sh-
To
yeah.
validate.
And she said, I used to have this angel pendant necklace that I wore all the time. She goes, it was my favorite necklace. She goes, and I lost it. And she goes, I know it sounds like the strangest thing. She goes, but literally, I felt heartbroken when I lost this necklace and I've never found it because she's so connected to the angels. Well, she goes, I know that sounds really strange. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you something that probably sounds even stranger, which is it's probably in a different dimension. It's still around. It's just in a
Yeah.
different dimension. So I said, you may reconnect with it one day.
Nice. Nice.
And she said,
It's so
okay.
true. Things just slip through the portals into other dimensions sometimes,
Yeah.
don't they? Aw, I
Uh,
love that. It's so important. I think that's very commonly what comes up in readings is past life information. And it's not to like stroke someone's ego. It's like, no, this is what's still affecting you as a being
hmm.
in subsequent lifetimes, and this is the wound or the trauma that you're carrying in this lifetime that may be still limiting you. And it's so important to look at that stuff, like how many of us carry around, whether it's physical pain or limitations in our expression or limitations in our awareness that are really just really old energy, right? Not even from
Yeah.
this lifetime that we're
And
just still carrying around. And when we become aware of it, it's not hard, it's just letting it go. That's not hard.
yeah,
Right. But we can't let go of something that we don't even recognize we're carrying around. So it's
totally.
first just becoming aware, and then it's simple. Then it's just a matter of letting it go,
Yeah.
forgiving it.
I know. I love reading past lives. I love it. I think it's so cool. And I'm always blown away about how much of our current lifetimes are influenced by it's like really in all reality, all we should be doing is reading past lives because it's like that's what it seems like, you
Because
know?
we're really just repeating them, right? We're
We're
just,
yeah, I mean, and
yeah,
I've had profound healings from having someone else read a past life for me from a situation that I didn't think was related to a past life, but that's what they saw. So like
right.
when my dogs died, I literally, and I'm not exaggerating, I literally cried every single day for
Yeah.
a year straight. I was just
Wow. Yeah.
devastated. And after a year, I thought, okay, enough is enough. This is crazy. Like
Have I cried enough yet?
this is too
Yeah.
much. This is too much. This is too much. So I got a hold of a pet psychic, and she said, "Oh, it's all related to this past life." And she went through this whole past life, not a past life with the dog, just a
Mhm.
past life, and how we had these matching pictures and how it all related. And at the time, I'm a psychic, I'm a reader, but still sometimes it's hard to hear the information because you're like, how is that related to this dog? Like he was trying, But literally, when the reading was over, I stopped crying. A healing had happened. Like, yeah, if I
Yeah,
stop and really think about it, like I'll get emotional, but it's nothing like
right.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the grief you were experiencing was well beyond the loss of your dear pet. There was other energy that experience
Right. It was
that brought
yeah,
to the
it was like
surface.
nonsensical. So you're like, okay, something else
Yeah,
is going on. So
a little extra.
a little extra. Let's find out what this is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so profound too. Just that hello to it's looking at a past life is really looking at the bigger picture of your soul's experience because it's so easy for us to just relate to this one lifetime and this one character we're playing or this one role, this body
Mhm.
personality, and
Yeah.
then think that everything that's happening to us is only related to that
Yeah.
one experience, but there's such a bigger picture at play.
Yeah.
And really, our lifetime now is just repeating. It's repeating anything from a past life that you
Yeah.
haven't let go of, that you haven't
Process.
forgiven.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
And
you
and
haven't
you hear
forgiven it, you get to replay it.
I know. Dang it. It's kind of a harsh reality actually, but um yeah, and then you'll
I
hear,
know.
there's no time, all time is one time, there's
Yeah.
no past, there's no future, and you go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And because it's hard
Mhm.
as a human to like really wrap your mind around that.
Right.
But through doing readings over the years, like you see that when you come across a past life that is
Yeah.
clearly
We
a
call it
future.
past life,
It's
right?
a past life. It's just
Right.
really should be called an other life reading. It's another
Right.
life
In
that you
other life.
had
Yeah.
because it's not unusual to have a future lifetime as
So
one of
much.
these lifetimes. So that's what helped me like understand, oh, now I'm
Yeah.
starting to understand all time is there is no past, there is no it's just all one.
This is the kind of information that you just get on a bigger level when you're
Hmm.
looking at it clairvoyantly, because that's
Yeah,
not something our analytical mind can even grasp, right?
right.
That's just, it twists your brain in a noodle to be like, wait, past, future, it's all the same, there's no time. Like all of that stuff is so clearly what it is when you're looking at it clairvoyantly. It's just like, oh yeah, of
Yes.
course it's like that, right? There's no, because you're not trying to figure it out. It just is what it is.
And
It might be
they're
difficult to put into words, right? And
yeah,
to convey in words to other people because then
yeah.
of course you're trying to bring it through the analyzer and then oh it's like this, but
Well,
it's not something that you can wrap your mind around. You
no,
just
and
need to know it.
there have been so many times where I'm doing a reading and it's just like I know it's the truth. Like I can't not say it. Like it's so clear, it's so strong, it's so intense, this information is so there, blah whatever it is.
Right.
And then I'll
Yeah.
stop the reading and get off the phone and like have a mini panic attack and go literally I'll be like, oh my God. I can't believe I just told that person that thing. That's crazy. That sounds crazy. They must think that sounded crazy. They think I'm crazy. I'm never going to hear from
Oh
them again.
yeah.
And I go through this whole scenario and then I have to calm myself down because my rational brain starts kicking in and go, okay,
Mhm.
you're a crazy person. You just told somebody all this crazy information. But it's not because it was validating for them. It was their truth. I mean, it could be like, oh, I saw this alien past life of yours, or I saw this
Yeah.
blah, 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 where you're like,
Yeah.
in a normal conversation, be like, okay, that sounds kind of strange, you know?
Yeah. It sounds like for you that healing opportunity that you have in readings is to blow those pictures of crazy, right? To let go of those past lives where you were considered crazy. And maybe some people will think you're crazy, but we're pretty much moved beyond that now as a
I know.
society. I think there's a lot more
Well, there's
havingness
some
for this
hanger-oners,
level
but
of information.
some hanger-on.
There's still plenty of it. We'll see it in the comments if people want to let us know about that. But
But I mean,
there's
I
still
guess
plenty of
maybe,
that. But there's a lot more havingness for awareness of
yeah,
spirit and a lot more just like, yeah, that's normal to talk about. But we
yeah,
get to let go of all that past judgment and programming and trauma around being considered crazy, and maybe being
yeah,
ostracized as a soul or killed off or
yeah,
thrown into the loony bin.
that too.
All of those.
all those. But I think my point of like
Yeah.
why this comes up for me to talk about it is so that other people who are starting their journey to be a clairvoyant, or not that they have to give professional readings necessarily, but just, if you're taking classes and you're doing these readings, like, okay, someone else had these experiences and
Yeah.
sometimes still does have the experiences, but it's just all part of the process and it's all okay. And when someone else has that, they're like, okay, it's not just me. Like, no,
Right. It
this is
comes up for
normal.
all
It's
of us,
normal.
right? Yeah. It's part of the process to let go of so many layers of energy, whether it's the, oh no, this is crazy energy, or other kinds of invalidation of, yo, you're not really seeing that,
Yeah.
or whether it's just straight up non-permission, like you can't see that, or you shouldn't see that, or you shouldn't talk about that. All of those layers of energy come up in the process. So it's so good to point out, like,
Yeah.
you're not alone if that comes up for you, you know?
Yeah.
Don't
And
let it stop you, right?
yeah, and I try to tell people, I think a lot of people are afraid of having it reading because they're afraid of hearing something bad or negative or something like
Right.
that. And I'll say, well, if something does come up that you consider negative or bad, I go, that's never the intention because energy is just energy. It just kind of is what it is. But you as a soul is bringing it up because you would like some clearing around it or healing around it or clarification around it. So it's like we can look at it from different angles and get different information.
I love
Another
that. No, it's so important to point
example.
out too the fear that people have around even just looking. I think there's a lot of perception of a reading being oriented to what's going to happen in the future, right?
Yes. Yes.
Or what do you see in me that maybe I don't want to be seen, right? So that fear can
Right.
come up around, are you going to see something bad that's going to happen to me, or are you going to see,
Yeah.
something bad within me? But yeah, to just know that when you're giving a reading, you're coming from a place of neutrality and
Hmm.
compassion, right? It's not about right or wrong. It's information is not coming from judgment or you're bad. We're all souls having so many experiences, and we can all
Yeah.
relate on that level of the challenges we face as souls and the joys. And
Yeah.
yeah, speaking to that is so important and powerful and validating. Thank you for doing the work that you do. I love hearing about the ins and outs, the joys and the challenges. It was especially amusing around just how aware you are of that level of information, even just out in the public. And so bringing it up in everyday context that might seem out of the ordinary, not in a
Yeah.
formal reading, but hey, I just noticed this and it's
Yeah.
important to bring it up. I
Yeah.
love that you're doing it, that you're speaking to it anyway, that you're not letting those judgment pictures about right or wrong context, you're not letting that stop you when
Yeah.
there's some important
And
communication to
it,
come through.
yeah. And it sounds, the way I'm talking about it, it sounds like it happens all the time, but
Right.
that's not the case.
Yeah.
These are just
But
like
when
the
it does,
highlighted times. Yeah.
yeah, right. It's not like every moment of the day, but it
Yeah.
happens. And I love that you don't block it, that you let it be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for communicating with me today about your life as a psychic, as being psychic and a psychic. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was
Yay.
really fun
Thank you,
being here.
everyone. It's so fun. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today on The Higher Vibe. We'll see you next time. Hello. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Share this with friends. Really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next time.